Someday you might have to use it to save someone else's life, or you might have to use it to save your own life. Are you ready for this? I'm talking about self-aiding buddy care. Today I'm going to talk about self-aiding buddy care, and I'm going to talk about one in particular part of it, about how to recognize the different types of bleeding and how to control it as well. But first, let's take a look at what self-aiding buddy care is and how we use it in the military. Also, I'm going to talk about different types of bleeding and, of course, how to control it as well. Self-aiding buddy care is also referred to as sabc in the military. We use self-aiding buddy care to give fundamental principles to soldiers before they deploy, so they can act as first responders when they're downrange, and they can provide care to people before medical care arrives. Self-aiding buddy care is required every 2 years or prior to deployment, which in that case it has to be done 90 days before they deploy. As I said, it's used for many different types of things. Examples are burn injuries, heat and cold related injuries, chemical and nuclear injuries, treating for shock management, and also airway management, and also how to treat fractures, and then how to go over the different types of splints that we use, and also we use it for psychological emergencies. The average human being, just a little background, has about 10 to 12 pints of blood in it. A person can lose 1 pint of blood in about 15-20 minutes. As I said, there's 2 different types of bleeding. There's internal and external, and then also there's 3 different types of external bleeding, which we're going to go over those here shortly. Internal bleeding is any type of bleeding that occurs on the inside of the body. It's caused by any type of injury, like injury to the abdominal or chest cavity via like a car accident, or fractures that occur inside the body via the long bones, which are in the arms and the legs, and also from bleeding ulcers. Internal bleeding is the most severe form of bleeding, and so you want to treat it promptly and quickly as possible. External bleeding is, as I said, there are 3 different types. There's arterial, venous, and capillary. This is a bleeding that occurs on the outside of the body, which has been caused by a break in the skin. The causes for these could be through bullet wounds, stabbings, incomplete amputations, and also open fractures. Arterial bleeding is the most severe form of bleeding that we have. It is characterized by the bright red spurting blood that most people see. This is caused by the high oxygen content that's in the blood, and also the spurting is caused by the contraction of the heart and pushing the blood out. You want to treat this as fast and promptly as possible. Venous bleeding is characterized by the flow, dark maroon color blood. This is caused by the deoxygenated blood that it has, and the fact that it's going back to the heart. It can be life-threatening if not treated promptly, so once again you want to treat it as fast as you can. It can be quite a heavy flow with all the oozing, so just go ahead and treat. Capillary bleeding is the slow flow, the oozing. Also, capillary bleeding is common that you see with a road rash that some people get. Capillary bleeding is less bright red than arterial, and most of them, capillary bleeding is not life-threatening, so you just want to go ahead and provide comfort to the patient as well. Internal bleeding is basically, it depends, how to control it depends on where it occurs. If it's inside the chest cavity, there's not too much we can do. They need medical help or surgical intervention. With bleeding on the inside, the abdominal cavity, what you want to do is you want to provide a wide bandage, and you want to fit it around the belly snugly, but not too tight, because you don't want it to interfere with the breathing. With that too, you want to also go ahead and treat for shock. Bleeding into the extremities, the areas are going to be warm and swollen. What you're going to do is treat with splinting, and then also go ahead and treat for shock as well. External bleeding, the best method to control external bleeding is through direct pressure. You can use bandages, gauze, you can use your hands or your fingers. If you're using gauze and everything, you want to make sure that you leave the gauze that you use in place. You never want to remove it and add new. You just want to keep piling the pressure and more gauze on top. of the original gauze that you have. So if that doesn't work, what you want to do next is to go ahead and use elevation. Basically, with elevation, you want to make sure that you raise the limb, the affected wound area, above the heart, and so on. With that, you want to make sure that you keep in mind, though, that if a patient is suspected that they have a fracture, you want to go ahead and treat the fracture first by splinting it, and then go on ahead and raising the wound above the heart. And just what this is going to do is cause the blood to flow and basically allow the clotting factor to start and everything. If the patient experiences pain when you're raising the limb with the fracture and everything, you want to put it to where the patient is comfortable but high enough that it can help out. So if this doesn't work, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to do all the following steps, but also now you're going to start using pressure points. There are 5 different pressure points in the body. They're in your neck, your arms, your groin area, and your wrists, and then also behind your knees as well. What you're going to basically do is you're going to push down on the artery that's lying close to the skin, which are in the pressure point areas, and then you're going to push down on the artery against the bone, on which this is going to cause the bleeding to stop, hopefully. So if pressure points don't work, your next step is your tourniquet. They're basically, a tourniquet is a constrictive band that is wrapped around the wound and is tightened down to cause the bleeding to stop. The key points with a tourniquet is that you want to make sure your constriction band is an inch or more in diameter, and then also that you want to apply it 2 to 4 inches away from the wound, but not over a joint space. And then also you want to make sure you tighten it down as much as possible to where you don't see any blood coming out, or you don't feel a pulse anymore. Also, the key important steps are with the tourniquet is to mark the tourniquet. You want to put a T on the forehead, and then you also want to put the date and time on the tourniquet, on the date and time on the forehead too, and also leave the tourniquet exposed so that we know if the patient has a tourniquet, we'll be able to see it obviously. These are different types of tourniquets. This is one that we use in the civilian sector, and this is one that we use in the military when we're deployed. This is just another example of a homemade tourniquet if you had to use it. So in summary, you see that self-aid body care, there are many different parts of self-aid body care. I just gave you one little piece to it. We went over a lot of information today. I hope you learned something new, that if you ever had to use it, that you would be able to recall it and go ahead and use it on someone else or on yourself. Thank you.